One of the year's biggest hits, bringing in one of the biggest shows of the whole year.
I don't know.
It's a big day at the network. Let's say that.
It's a big Leafs show.
Yes.
You know?
The big reason why you're listening to my voice and not Brian Hayes. It is Mark Rowe alongside Frankie Corrado and Dave Feschuk from the Toronto Star. It is an OverDrive night on the Leafs panel, so it's going to be a lot of eyeballs on that game. There already would be. Leafs Devils, and it's a Leaf game, but the boys will be hanging out with James Duthie tonight, and we get to hang out for the next 3 hours. So it's a win-win.
It's fun. Like, I was just on a Leaf panel, and I would love it if those guys went to Duthie and Billy Dodson, who produces everything in the studio, and just said, "Don't worry, like we're just going to do our thing." And we're just going to do our OverDrive thing. Don't worry about, you're going to go here with this, then you're going to go to this guy with that.
And how would that go over?
Fly.
TV producers.
There would be an underpants cam going early on.
Wow. So you're saying that they have James Duthie on the panel because they need an adult in the room? Is that what you're saying?
I'm just like, he's got to direct traffic.
Right.
And no one's better at directing traffic than Duthie.
Yes, that's true.
Very true.
Sorry, Mark.
No, don't worry. You don't have to look at me when you say that, man.
Piece of my heart broke there. saying that in front of you.
You just had to put my name in the same sentence as James. That's a win for me.
He said no one's better. He didn't say you weren't just as good.
But just let it, 30-minute pregame show and just let it fly for 30 minutes and see what happens.
Well, I was trying to get some scoops because I got here about an hour and a half ago, and I was walking around, and the powers that be, I ran into them, and I was trying to get a little scoop here or there. What can we tease? And it's like, the guy at the draft lottery who's got the briefcase and it's handcuffed to their arm. Like, that's the rundown for tonight. Like, wow. I got nothing.
Hayes is here already.
I know.
I pulled in at 3:05 and he was sitting in his car. Like, I don't know what he was doing.
Rehearsing?
I don't know if he was, listening to music, like if he had Motley Crue going, Kickstart My Heart, but he was in his car. He got out,
listening to Jerry's takes?
Gave me one of these, and he went in.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's ready to go.
Any Al's brother sightings? Al's brother on the panel, you think?
I don't know. I don't know if Al's brother's going to be on.
Luke Wilson, maybe? Make a little appearance of Owen Wilson.
Who knows? It could be a cast of characters.
Yeah, you never know.
Regardless of how it goes down, I'm very grateful to be a part of this process with you guys today. Yeah. Very grateful to be a part of the process.
Yes, the process is really what it's all about. It's not winning.
No.
It's not the money or the jerseys that you can sell because of said superstars. It is about being part of a process that we will collectively be together for 3 hours.
It's a privilege to be here.
Yes.
Yeah.
It really is.
Well, we just had the Grappler in, and Grappler made a good point. Like, in terms of sort of, humiliating yourself in front of the Toronto fan base with a very weak comment like the one Ross Atkins brought to us in the wake of whiffing on Juan Soto. Which is worse? Sheldon Keefe's, and of course, the Leafs will see him tonight in Jersey. Is it Sheldon Keefe's respecting the handshake line? Or is it Ross Atkins' privilege to be part of the process?
The process. I think Sheldon would have taken a mulligan on that because that's one of those ones where when you say it and you hear it back, you're like, that doesn't sound the way I meant it to sound. But with Ross Atkins and what he said, we're grateful to be a part of the process or privileged to be a part of the process. What the hell are you talking about, man? This is a team that won back-to-back World Series. Like, okay, I'm young. Like, I was born in 93. But back-to-back World Series at one point was a destination for all the best players that wanted to come here and play and be competitive and win. And now it's like, we're just grateful that you let us talk to you.
Yeah.
What is that?
Well, and as much as Leaf fans want more than being able to say you're going toe-to-toe with, the defending champs or cup contenders, what would you rather have? That or we got to have coffee with somebody?
Yeah.
Like that's what you're saying. Like, it's almost like I got a meet and greet with my favorite, superstar.
See, I think respecting the handshake line was worse because it was like, we know we're about to get pilloried by our fan base, but the guys we just played think we're really good, okay? Okay? We all know you think we stink, and we can't win a game when it matters to save our lives. But those guys over there, they think we're good. Mm-hmm. Just so you know, there's respect over there. Yeah. Even though, do you really believe there was respect over there? Do you really believe there was respect in that handshake line?
It's hard to say because, when you're in those situations after you lose a series, there's a lot of emotions. You're looking at there's a guy then there's a guy you hate, then you shake hands with the coach, and it's just like, a lot of mixed things going on. Like, I feel like anytime a series finishes, there's going to be a bunch of guys that win that series and look at guys on the other side and say, man, good series. Like, that was really good. And they give you the look, and then you go back and you're like, man, we must have made it really hard on those guys. And not like to bring this up because, Leafs are playing the Devils and it's Sheldon. And, but like, that's kind of my experience with those situations. It always feels like there's at least a little bit of that.
Yeah, but you don't share that with your fan base.
Yeah, that's why I think he would want a mulligan on it.
Yeah.
I think he would want a do-over on that.
I'll say this. He could say that same line with his current team, and it wouldn't have quite the legs that it did here.
Yeah.
You could tell if you listen to him with the boys yesterday in OverDrive, he sounds a lot more relaxed than he did during his time with the Maple Leafs, which I guess it goes without saying. You're not dealing with the media as much, the pressure. While they have big expectations, and while that organization has put a lot of talent together and they expect to do things, it almost seems like you're at a different pace.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when you're on like vacation and the pace of time is just a little bit slower. Not to say he's on a vacation, but it's not quite what it's like in Toronto or Montreal, or even you look at the New York Rangers right now. And it should be a really good game. It feels like it was 6 months ago that they played each other to kick off the season, the second game of the year on October 10th. But for a Maple Leafs team that has struggled to score recently, they'll be up against Jacob Markstrom tonight and trying to go 2-0 against their former team or former coach.
Yeah, so there's another quote from Sheldon, right, where, what was it? Like, he said guys were texting him, other coaches saying, like, welcome to the real NHL now.
Yeah.
Like, for me, that wasn't a shot at Toronto saying, like, that it's not the real NHL in Toronto. It's just the scrutiny and the attention that the coach seems to get is so much more magnified in Toronto than the majority of places. I'm sure, like Montreal, when they have high expectations, would be right there with Toronto. There's a number of teams, but like, he lives in a different world now than he did in Toronto. He lives in a different world than John Hines does in Minnesota, or like, go down the list, right? Like, there's just, or he did live in that different world. And now it's like, yeah, he can feel a little more relaxed, and he's got a team that's really good. And you kind of get into the conversation of, between the Leafs and the Devils, like, what's the team that's more ready to win? Like, what's the team that's more knocking on the door? Devils are a good team, good goaltending. Their back end's pretty good. Toronto's got a very legit shutdown pair now in Tanev and McCabe. I would say Toronto's star players, probably a little more upside there. Goaltending, you can saw it off, but it's two very comparable teams in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, we all know the story with the upside of the Toronto forwards, right? And their star players. We all know it's not about anything but what happens in April and beyond. So, they haven't been those types of players when it mattered. But it's interesting how, you look at this game tonight and you look at the situation the Leafs are in, and they're not scoring, right? And you heard I don't think I ever heard Sheldon Keefe directly sort of call out players in the way Greg Berube has called out essentially the entire bottom six, saying we need more secondary scoring.
Yeah, they're getting nothing.
Like, they're getting nothing. And I found it funny yesterday. Max Domi was trying to be a bit of a contrarian when people were saying, hey, you're possibly coming back into the lineup. You don't have a goal this season. That must be a little bothersome. And Max Domi's like, no, it's not bothersome. Not at all. If you heard
it would
quote.
Be bothersome.
And then Craig Berube, after that scrum, essentially said, yeah, we need him to score. It matters that he's not scoring. It matters that our bottom six isn't scoring. And for all that, let's face it, guys, like, when you're a guy that scored 69 last year is on pace for 32 this year, there might not be enough secondary scoring in the world to make up for the fact that Auston Matthews is not himself right now.
It's a bad year to not have secondary scoring. And despite all that, like we were talking about it last week on the panel on Friday, it's pretty quiet around the team because they're still winning games, right? Like, how many games were you like, yeah, this one is one they probably didn't deserve to win, but goaltender made some big saves. They got a couple timely goals and you win. Like, that kind of stuff keeps the conversation pretty quiet when, if they lose those games, now all of a sudden we're talking about Matthews on pace for 32 or the Nick Robertsons of the world and Max Domi who can't score. But like, it's been 3 games now and they haven't had a goal from anyone not named Matthews, Marner, Nylander, or Tavares.
Yeah.
And the Washington game, you could have used one. That's one of those nights where you're like, okay, if the big boys can't get one, you need the depth goal. Like, that's not too much to ask to say every, I don't know, 7 to 10 games, we just need the depth night.
Right.
You know, like, that's not asking too much. Then the Pittsburgh game was a whole, like, that's the back-to-back. It's, I don't know, it was a bit of a mess.
Special teams.
Yeah, special teams, penalties, all that
Too
kind
many
of
penalties,
stuff.
yeah.
But, like, if you go down the list, okay, Domi hasn't scored. Camp's not playing. McMahon's not playing. Robertson can't score. Connor Dewar, they got him last year. He had 10 goals by the trade deadline when he got him last year. He had more goals than almost anyone in the bottom 6 outside of maybe Calle Yarncroke. Like,
yeah, and they were kind of surprise goals.
Year.
Yeah, and Holmberg's done nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's like, yeah, you're right. Like, it's not like you're asking for nightly contributions, but the occasional surprise contribution, it just hasn't come. Right?
And some of those guys have just returned, so I guess there needs to be some patience with the Paciorettys. And while not confirmed, it sounds like Domi's going to play tonight. McCabe is not going to play. But what situation would you rather be in, especially when you look at going into the trade deadline? A team that's dealing with secondary scoring issues, or one that can't defend, and you need that right side defenseman that they're always looking for at the deadline and they never really get? Can they fix this problem in season a little better or a little easier than if they were giving up, 5-6 goals a game, and it doesn't matter that Matthews is going to score 70?
Well, with Toronto, like, if all those depth guys were playing, let's say average, like if they were just giving you their career average season, I don't think depth scoring would be an issue. I think it would be fine. Like, they would all have to be back and in the lineup and playing. But if they were all just giving you like their average year, but they're not doing that right now. A, they've been gone. They were ravaged by injuries. And B, the guys that have been around, the depth guys, just they're well below average when it comes to their production. So that's, you would think in theory, if they're all back playing and they're giving you their average output, you're not in a bad spot. Like, there is enough depth scoring there, but they have to actually do it.
Well, it's interesting. Like, I've heard a lot of different theories around it. Like, is it the fact that they're asked to play a different style under Berube, the North style, right? Do not retreat, do not circle back, do not regroup, send it forward toward their net at all times. Does that tax you in a different way? And there might be a theory that I could buy into, except for the fact that, the guys you mentioned, like Nylander's having a hell of a year playing that way. Tavares is having a hell of a year playing that way. Mitch Marner's having the best year of his life playing that way. Contract year. Somehow figures in Toronto. Matthews is the only one of those 4 that's having a down year.
And we know he's banged up.
And we know he's
like
banged up.
The thing is, like, if you're flying to Germany and you're seeking out that, caliber of treatment, you're banged up. Call it what it is. Like, and that's okay. At some point, when he feels like he's 100% and he really is in a good place, then I'm sure the production will be there. We've seen it from him countless times where it's like, that will sort itself out. But the other guys, and it's funny, like, you bring up the star players and they're having success. You would think that the guys that are a little more meat and potatoes, the guys that are the depth guys that just go straight up and down or are supposed to go straight up and down, they would be the ones to thrive under this first. And then the guys that are more east-west pull up, they would have the harder time adjusting.
Right.
Clearly hasn't been the case.
No, it hasn't. And I find that kind of fascinating because I've heard people around the league suggest to me that their problem with not scoring like they were last year is the idea that Berube is asking them to do more at both ends. But it just doesn't hold water for the best players who you would think might be the ones that were affected most. But I mean, let's face it, like, the Matthews problem is a considerable problem here if it lingers, right? Like, he's had electric games at times, but he's also had some pretty dull-looking games. He's taken more penalties than usual. He's had 3 penalties in the last 5 games. Doesn't do that very often in his career. What do you make of it, Frankie? Like, do you see a different guy that's going to be nursing something all season? Do you see a guy that just is ramping back up after being gone for 3 weeks or whatever it was?
More that. I think it's more just ramping back up. I don't know. Like, it's hard to say that, with the captaincy, there's more expectations or there's more on his plate. I think it's the same amount that would have been on his plate. Now it's, maybe he's a little more vocal or he's the guy you kind of look to, have the first word or the only word or the last word in the room, all that kind of stuff. But I don't think that's going to weigh him down to this point. I really just think it's a matter of, playing through something, and at some point he's going to feel a little more comfortable, and we'll see it, we'll see it kind of happen there. I kind of thought after the reuniting of Marner and Matthews, that was going to be, the shot in the arm that he needed. And it might still be, but I think it's more about Matthews just getting ramped up and getting up to speed more than anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think you take that time off with a significant injury that is of the nature of whatever he is dealing with, and you jump onto a moving train the way that the season is at this time. So I guess we shouldn't be shocked.
And he's streaky. Like, he's a streaky goal scorer.
Yeah.
Right? Like, last year he opened the season with back-to-back hat tricks. And the year he scored 40, he wasn't streaky. Remember, it was all these just 1-goal games. He didn't have the 2-goal games, and he didn't have those multi-goal performances. Now, like, you always know that's in the back of, I think it's in the back of our heads that, like, if Matthews gets going, there's going to be a week where this guy scores 6 goals.
Well, don't you just look at
games.
At the shooting percentage? Because he's always going to be among the leaders in shots.
Yeah.
And when he's going, that number is really high. And some would say that's not sustainable. I think with Auston Matthews, it is. I think we've seen enough from him that, he's hitting those spots where so far this year, there's been so many times where, like, last year he would have scored there. You know what I mean? Like, he's fired it a little wider. He just missed. And there's so many times where it's the small details of the game that you would know better than us.
It's a good, bringing up the shooting percentage is a good point, because he's a career 16% shooter. This year he's 10.8. And last year he was 18. So last year he was obviously shooting above his career average, and this year he's significantly below.
That's way low. Yeah.
Way low. That's actually the lowest he's ever had. Ever. Even the year that he scored 40. So at some point that's not going to continue to be the case. Like, that's going to even itself out. It'll creep back up to that career average, but yeah, the shooting, look to the shooting percentage. He's going to get his chances, and at some point, if he's feeling stronger, feeling more comfortable, he's got to feel that way, because if he's going to beat goalies clean and from distance, you kind of have to have 100% capability to do so.
Oh, without a doubt. No, but I mean, look, it's to me, it's interesting how Berube's approached this, right? You got to love the directness of Craig Berube. I really do. And I don't know how players feel about it, Frankie, but I mean, you know where you stand with this guy.
That's good.
He does not mince words. He's basically just calling out Max Domi, saying, yeah, guess what, Max? We'd like you to score more. We'd like you to be less selfless. We'd like you to shoot it more. And guess where we'd like you to shoot it from? Closer to the net.
Yeah.
And same with Nick Robertson, who is a goal scorer by trade, who's not scoring goals. And we all know Nick Robertson's had his grievances with this organization and a trade demand in the summer. And you always get the sense that, he's not particularly happy with his situation in life. But I don't know what you can ask for more than a coach that just spells it out for you and says, this is
no
what I
kidding,
expect.
But what about Berube the other day said, we got to still help him out. How many coaches would have said at this point to a guy like that, we've done all we can, man. Or go to the GM and say, I don't know what more you want me to do. I've given this guy all kinds of opportunity, but still Craig Berube, to his credit, is at least publicly, who knows what they say behind closed doors, but publicly is saying, yeah, we know he hasn't had the season he wanted, but we still got to help him. That's on us. I give him a lot of credit for saying that, at least.
He's not Torts in a way that he's going to bury a guy to the media. And again, I don't mean to jump all over Torts, because he also will do a lot of good things with players that we don't see.
Yeah.
And I've worked with enough former hockey players who will say great things about Torts, but his calling card is, sometimes ripping guys to the media. And Berube doesn't go that far. Maybe if you listen closely, you're clearly this isn't his favorite guy.
Did you guys
benched him for the third period the other night?
Did you guys?
He did that with actions more so than words.
And that's fine. Hey, you're going to get benched. If a coach can't bench a guy, what are we doing? Do we even need coaches anymore?
Everyone in the building wanted him benched after that offside and the penalty.
Oh, yeah.
That just reeked of a guy that has zero confidence.
Right.
Just get this puck off my stick. Here, you deal with it.
Right.
Did you guys see Torts get asked about Matvei Michkov signing the autograph on his way off the ice? I don't know if we have it or not, but we gotta try and find this thing. I guess Torts didn't know, and they asked him in a scrum, and you gotta the look on his face is classic. He starts asking what he did what, We'll get it. We gotta play it later in the show.
All right. Doogie confirming that Domi is returning and Gurbankin is being sent down, and ticket sales for the Marlies are skyrocketing at the moment. As one of the fan favorites is going down the street to play with the Marlies, but Domi, as we expected, will be back, and that's somewhat of a shot in the arm. Not to say like he's the savior. You just mentioned,
but it's a legitimate NHL player who has the ability to be productive. That is as good as it gets as far as getting players back right now at this point in the year.
I mean, he's had a couple of 20-goal seasons. This is not a guy with insufficient skill. Max Domi can put it in the net when it's going his way. It's not going his way this year, but they need him. Let's face it. Like we're going to spend from now until March 7th. The trade deadline, talking about the depth that they don't have that they need and who they need to pick up. And a lot of that is going to be about, I think the degree of that conversation will be in large part driven by whether or not Max Domi kind of turns his season around. Because if he doesn't, then you definitely need more depth up the middle, because if he's not an option at center, they need another one.
That's exactly it right there. I'm happy you said it, because it's like, is he going to be a centerman? Because if he is, then you solve a problem. If he's not,
haven't we tried that though?
But
isn't it kind of like
we have tried it? I thought last year when he first got to the team, he was playing the wing. It looked like it wasn't natural for him. Like it freed him up a little more being in the center of the ice. As he went back to the wing, felt like that transition was a little more smooth for him. But good luck finding a centerman.
Yeah,
like go back to the offseason. We've talked about this. Like you could have signed Chandler Stevenson or Elias Lindholm or. That's it. Like Matt Duchene.
But is it easier? And
that was it.
Is it easier in March to do that? Is it easier to get the Ryan O'Reilly that they got a couple of years ago?
See, that's what you're looking for. Right. He's got term. And that's the thing. Max Domi's got term here too, right? So you kind of need him to be some kind of solution for you. Whether he's center or a wing, he has to be some kind of solution.
Well, he's that class of player in this league, and there aren't many of them left, especially under the Leafs salary cap situation, where when you're making $3.75 million on a cap hit, in a league where there are guys making the minimum who can play, you've got to be doing a lot more than the guys making the minimum, right, to justify 100%. Your place in the world.
Yeah, that's that sweet spot in Toronto's cap structure that they've never really been able to nail, right? Like they've always had the high-paying guys, and they do their thing in the regular season, and that if you just looked at the regular season itself, you got your money's worth out of all those guys. They really find like the basement bargain bin type guys. Like you got Michael Bunting at $9.25 for a couple of years. Like that was really well done. They've hit on a couple of those. The $4 million forward, $3 million forward, the Calle Yarncroke guy. That's that like pay demographic that just hasn't been able to hit in this cap structure for them. And it's hard because the guys that are really good, they're probably making 5 or 6. Right, so you're paying $1.8 to $2.2 million player because you really want him. You might have to pay him a little more to get him, but you're not getting that. That's been tough.
So it's the Leafs and Devils tonight, as we set off the top, a special broadcast with the boys. They'll be in Studio 6 with James Duthie, Hayes, Noodles, and O-Dog, and Mike Johnson, who's going to be on the call with Gord Miller, is going to join us to kick off the 5 o'clock hour. And before we take a break, I want to get your thoughts on what Brady Tkachuk had to say today, because one of the big stories in hockey over the last few days has been this rumor, and that's all it is that the New York Rangers are going to swoop in and take a Tkachuk out of Canada and bring them to the States because the Tkachuks hate playing in Canada and certainly wouldn't like playing with the Ottawa Senators. This is all Larry Brooks. This is not me saying this. But today he spoke to the media for the first time about those rumors, and this is what the Sens captain had to say.
I mean, it's just, it's stuff that you can't really control. So I'm going to be honest, it doesn't really bother me because it's coming from a place where obviously it's not true. But I think it just speaks to the leadership that we have in this organization with Mr. Andlauer and Steve and how they have not just my back and this time, but the players' backs through their time here and through the future. I can't control it. I mean, of course, it's happened multiple times now, and obviously it's just not true. So, I mean, it would just be a waste of energy to get frustrated with something that I can't control. It's the reason why I signed a 7-year deal is because, I believe in this team. I believe in what we're doing. I believe in everybody.
Good for Michael Andlauer, first of all. I think the way he handled that, all this guy has done since buying the team for basically $1 billion is have to put out fires that he inherited that weren't his problem. Now he's got reports of his captain, star player, other teams are targeting him. Great. Like, other teams can target whoever they want. Doesn't mean Ottawa has to trade him or should trade him. And Matthew Tkachuk got a bridge deal in Calgary. So we knew there was an expiration date that was coming pretty soon, and a decision had to be made. Brady just mentioned it. He wanted to be in Ottawa. He signed a 7-year deal. And so, like, if D-Row got a nice girlfriend in your life at one point.
Whoa.
And everyone's throwing likes on
I got
her
a wife
picture.
at home.
Yeah, I know. At one point, it was a girlfriend.
Okay.
Everyone's throwing likes on her picture, right? There's some DMs.
Yep.
And eventually you probably went and you threw out a nice picture out there, arm around, just marking your territory. That's what Michael Andlauer did. Like, stop sending DMs. Stop throwing likes around.
I don't know, Frankie.
This is my player. This is the captain of my team. His name shouldn't be in reports of other teams.
Frankie, come on. You've been in the media long enough to know you can't stop the media from being the media.
I know you can't stop the media, but you can stop other teams from throwing that out there.
Well, you don't know who threw that out there. Could have been anybody. Could have been an agent. Could have been a rival executive. Could have been a parent. The parents are very vocal in today's NHL.
Yes, that is.
That's the tricky thing.
I have no idea who it was. But what I'm saying, Frankie, I understand what you're saying. Like, he's trying to mark his territory. He's trying to say enough is enough. But he's only bringing more attention to the fact that he's being embarrassed by rival organizations that think there's a vulnerability there and they can get this guy.
And you know what? The only reason why that is because Ottawa is not, as far ahead as maybe.
Yeah, they're kind of doing what they've done the last few years.
I'm not going to say they're spinning their wheels, but they're not where they want to be. And I think people automatically assume that, that means Brady wants out. Where, unless you heard it from Brady, then I don't know where you get it
You're
from.
right. It's irrelevant until
it happens.
The player says he wants out. But the bottom line is there's only one way to make sure he's not going to want out, and that's to win. And they're not doing that. Like, it's 8 straight years now. They're not going to make the playoffs again. And it looks like they're going to have to do a rebuild on the rebuild. Now, that's not Andlauer's fault. It's not Dave Poulin's fault, not Steve Staios' fault. They inherited this mess, this situation in large part. But it is what it is. And if you're living in it as a highly competitive player, and there's a reason why teams covet players like Brady Tkachuk, is because there's so few of them. Players that play with edge, with commitment, with that kind of zeal, that kind of infectious energy. It's a hard thing to find in this league.
Guy that can score 30 to 40 goals, get you 100 penalty minutes, fight 10 times, and beat the wheels off guys.
But I mean, the downside of employing a player like that when you're a woebegone franchise that can't figure it out is they're not going to want to stay there. Their competitive nature just is not compatible with missing the playoffs every year.
I guess you got to hope that there's part of him that says, I'm not pulling the plug on this. I'm going to be the reason why we turn it around, or a big part of it.
Yeah.
Like, you got to hope that there's just that, like, undying loyalty there, where Crosby has that with the Penguins, right? Like, you have to hope there's that kind of loyalty.
But he won young.
I know.
It was easy to stick
He
around.
won already,
He already had a ring.
Apparently, Larry Brooks had 3 sources tell him this. So I don't think Mike Johnson is one of those sources, but we'll get his thoughts on that. Again, he's going to be on the call tonight for Leafs and Devils. He's going to join us at 5 o'clock. Steve Phillips, we talked about the process that the Blue Jays were a part of with Juan Soto. We'll get his thoughts on that in the 6 o'clock hour. Super Bowl champion Ryan Harris is going to join us at 5:30 on the Monday Nighter and how that one ended, and plus looking ahead to this week's slate of games. And Confirm or Deny is coming up as Overdrive continues on TSN 1050, the TSN app, and also up on TSN 4.
I can neither confirm or deny that this is in fact a segment.
Auston trades Andrew Raycroft to Toronto in exchange for the rights to Tuukka Rask.
It's been my honor and a privilege to serve as the general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs Hockey Club.
It's time for Confirm or Deny.
Do you regret giving all those gentlemen the no trades or no movement clauses?
Well, I can neither confirm or deny that.
I can't confirm or deny.
I can't confirm or deny that confirm or deny will be part of the Leafs broadcast tonight, but it's part of this edition of Overdrive. Mark Rowe in for Brian Hayes alongside Frankie Corrado and Dave Feschuk. And let's begin with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Confirm or deny, one of Mitch Marner or William Nylander will hit the 100-point mark this season.
That's a confirm. All day, that's a confirm. This is the year for Mitch Marner. Like, he's come very close. Didn't he have 99?
Yeah.
At 97. Like, he's on pace for 115 right now. It's going to happen. Mitch Marner is a 100-point player, and this is the year he's going to do it. He's playing great hockey. Like, I hear people say it's the best hockey of his career. This is really good hockey. Mitch Marner has played this kind of hockey before. This is not an anomaly. This is not a revelation that Mitch Marner's playing this well. We always knew this is who he was, and this is the year that he gets 100 points.
Yeah, it's going to be one guy. It's not going to be either or. It's going to be Marner. Nylander's on it. What, he had 98 points last year. He's on 84-point pace this year. After he got paid, what do you know?
He could get 50 goals, though.
Having a good year.
Like,
I'm kind of being facetious, but yeah, I mean, Marner is just on a tear here, and it's amazing to watch, and I think it's amazing to watch how he's played without Matthews, as much as Craig Berube can't help but put him back with Matthews, even though he insisted when Matthews first came back that he might keep him apart. But without Matthews in that 9-game stretch, it was something to behold, him being a little less deferential, a little more shoot first, a little more aggressive. And then on the defensive side of the puck, he's been tremendous under Berube. It's a really great coach-player match, and I think it's showing in Marner's stats and certainly in the way he's played 200 feet.
Yeah, he is the 100-point player who's never hit 100 points.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think everyone, when you describe players, point per game or they're a 40-goal scorer, Mitch Marner gets described as the 100-point guy because he's essentially done it if you go per game in the past. And the 99, let's round up and give him 100. But I agree.
No, we can't give him 100 if you can get 100.
Well, okay. I'm just to say it in the sense of like his ability to be able to.
Yeah, I know. I'm just.
Yeah. So let's go 3 for 3 with that. I don't know if we'll be as confident with this one. Auston Matthews will hit at least 45 goals this season.
You want to go?
I'm gonna deny it. I think it's just haven't seen the same Auston Matthews. And I mean, now he's got 55 games to play here. And we all know a couple of hat tricks in a row could really change the narrative pretty quickly. And he's got that in him. But, there's just something about him this year that hasn't been as dominant as usual, consistently enough for me to just say, yeah, of course he's going to get back on the train that got him to 69 last year. I think right now he's just in a different state. I mean, clearly you don't go to Munich if you're 100% healthy. And whatever's bothering him is clearly affecting him to some degree. And I just think it's going to be tough. Right now he's on pace for 32. So to get to 45, it's going to be tight. I'm sure he's going to get into the 40s. But if I had to bet, I'd say under 45.
That's where I'm at. I think it's in the 40s, so I'm going to deny it. It's in the 40s. It's under 45. But I would say this. Do we really care? Like, do we really care if Auston Matthews storms back and gets 47 goals this year and the Leafs lose in the first round? Like, do you think Auston Matthews cares about that? At the like, when it's all said and done, if Auston Matthews comes back and gets to a point where his body feels good and comfortable, and he goes on, let's say he goes on a tear in the 2 weeks or month leading up to the playoffs, and who cares he didn't get 45, but now he's on fire going into the first round, and he fills the net at that point, like, it's just the number 45, I think, is just so irrelevant in the grand scheme of things for Auston Matthews. He had 42 years ago. Who cares, right? And he played a lot that year.
The numbers are relevant as long as he rolls into the playoffs.
Yes,
being the guy he can be.
Look at last year. He was knocking on the door at 70. I don't want to give him the crown. I know that you're a stickler.
Can't round that up.
But what did he do in the playoffs? He was great in game 2, and he's either hurt or wasn't himself for the rest of that series against the Bruins.
Yeah.
If he goes 44 goals in the regular season, but is rolling, and
if he had 2 or 3 more game 2s.
That's true.
Yeah. Then he would have been dominating, and they would have won the series.
We needed to go from the Matthews game to the Matthews series.
Right.
Yes.
Trademark that.
Do that.
I like it.
Okay. Save that for the spring as well. And maybe if it just takes the Four Nations face-off off, and doesn't play it and gets a couple weeks off, that would help the Maple Leafs.
You know what? I don't think he would.
I know. I don't see it.
I think that like the prospect of playing best on best and representing your country is way too
and
enticing.
I don't blame him.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to skip ahead to a question that Doogie loves. He's really proud of himself. I don't know if you're going to have the same reaction. And I think he was pointing at you, Frankie, for this because you do.
I was so distracted by the cologne odor.
Right.
When he walked in here.
Well, it's tough.
Yeah, it is tough.
You got to swim through it. But you do a lot of Montreal Canadiens games. One of the bright stories in that city is Patrik Laine. Confirm or deny that he's going to lead the Canadiens in goals by the conclusion of this season. Cole Caulfield has 17 goals, I should point out.
That's a deny. Cole Caulfield has 17, and Cole Caulfield is a very good goal scorer.
Right.
He's going to continue to be. It's funny that you mention Mitch Marner as, the 100-point player that's never got 100 points.
Right.
Cole Caulfield almost feels like the 40-goal scorer who's never scored 40.
I know.
Because he's been on pace for it,
Yeah.
but he's just either hadn't been healthy, and then last year his shooting percentage was way down. Like, Caulfield's going to get 40 this year. Laine has basically knocked it out of the park since, rejoining Montreal. He's got 3 power play goals in 4 games. Everything's going right for him. But he's not gonna catch up to Caulfield. This is the year he gets 40. He's gonna continue to have a good pace.
Yeah, I have to deny it too. I mean, I just think, you're right. They don't call him Gold Caulfield for nothing. He's a natural born goal scorer, and he probably has kind of undershot his marks in previous years, and he really does seem on pace to do, his best work this year. But then the thing with Laine is, like, you're just kind of waiting for the next injury to happen in some ways. Not that you're wishing it on him, but it's just it's been his career trajectory, right? Where he just has had a hard time staying healthy, had a hard time building on prosperity. Not that you're wishing bad things for him, but if you're trying to project what he's going to do, you got to believe there'll be some setbacks before the end of the season, and therefore you go with the deny.
Mm-hmm. Also, Joe from the Bridge always bringing it back to the Leafs. A 40-goal guy who was never a 40-goal guy, Phil Kessel.
Yeah.
Did he never touch 40?
No.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I know. It's
crazy to think.
I thought at least once, but not everyone can be the O-Dog. Anyways, let's move on to the NFL. Josh Allen, who did everything but win that game against the Rams on the weekend, should be leading the MVP over Saquon Barkley.
That's 100% confirmed because last year, all I heard was, well, McCaffrey can't be the MVP because he doesn't play quarterback. Even though every game the Niners were playing, you could guarantee this guy was going to give you a touchdown. Imagine going in every game 6-0. Mm-hmm. That's what it was like for McCaffrey and the Niners last year. But no, he couldn't be the MVP because there was all these QBs ahead of him. Well, why is that any different this year? Josh Allen has been unbelievable this year. And I know Saquon Barkley's had a great year. Like, not going to take anything away from him. But if McCaffrey couldn't do it last year, why can Barkley do it this year when Josh Allen is having the season he's having?
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you, Frankie. I mean, Allen is just, he's been the best player in the league by a lot of measures, especially when you consider how important that position is. And there's a reason why quarterbacks are MVPs almost all the time, right? Because the exceptions are just few and far between in years where there's not a dominant quarterback. But I will say this, Barkley's making a case, right? Like he's been that good. He's carried that team as much as he has, and it's made you at least consider the idea that the running back position is having a renaissance, and that maybe you have to sort of compare the apples to the oranges and say, well, yeah, Josh Allen has been the best quarterback, but this guy has affected winning in a way that you have to at least consider him.
He is the favorite at -450, and you take a look at the contenders for this. Jared Goff, I just think there's so much talent on that team. If you took him away and you put in, just somebody who's
Matthew Stafford.
Sure. Well, that's a really good quarterback.
Well, I know, but that's who was there.
Right. But if you put someone who is somewhat of a journeyman quarterback, I still think the Lions are doing well.
Throw Sam Darnold in the Lions.
Yes.
They're just as good.
You take Josh Allen off the Bills and put an average quarterback, I don't think that team maybe makes the playoffs. And I don't even know if they do that.
That's a fair assessment.
Now, you can say the same thing about Saquon Barkley. Pretty much every NFL analyst says this is a very average Eagles team without Saquon Barkley, especially offensively. And you watch them against Carolina and Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown, and there doesn't seem to be chemistry. It Seems like there's not chemistry off the field apparently either. But Saquon Barkley, like Christian McCaffrey, is the linchpin to that whole team. But I agree with you in the fact that almost always goes to a quarterback, and I even think that Josh Allen means that much more to the Bills than Barkley does.
But let's face it, the stretch run's going to matter here. These last 4 weeks are going to probably decide it because, like Josh Allen, we all know he's got it in him to throw some interceptions. He hasn't done it yet.
Yeah, he's been more disciplined this year.
A lot more disciplined. Sure. I mean, so that could be a factor here. And let's face it, like the Eagles have only lost 2, the Bills have lost 3, and so I think the team that kind of comes out with the better record probably makes the case for their guy a little easier.
It's funny. I remember sitting in the boardroom watching game. It was either a Monday or a Thursday, and we have all the TVs in there, and Luke's in there. He's watching the football game. I got a few hockey games on. We're going to do our post-game hits. And I just remember him saying, how have they not figured out that you need to go through Barkley all the time? Mm-hmm. And the Eagles were playing. He couldn't believe how much they were throwing it at the time. I don't think they make that mistake anymore. Like, I think they have really bought into just like really driving it through with the run game now.
Yeah. It goes back to like the value of a running back and the resurgence of it. And, the teams that don't have adequate running, you can see that offense is faltering. And I've watched that all season with the Dallas Cowboys.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah. I want to start with you, Fez, on this one because confirm or deny. And it's the timing's great because of the way that the Raptors played last night and the way that RJ Barrett played, is the second best Canadian player in the NBA at the moment, second to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Mm-hmm. You confirm or deny that?
Yeah, I mean, right now you have to confirm it just because of the way Jamal Murray's fallen off, right? Mm-hmm. Like he's not himself right now, and like we saw it in the Olympics where he just couldn't contribute and separate the way he normally separates, as he did en route to really, co-leading the Nuggets to a championship. Right now, yeah, I mean, it's obviously Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has separated himself as the best Canadian by quite some margin in the running for an MVP, even though it looks like, Mr. Jokic is going to make it a very difficult race to win. But Barrett's done a great job. Like all the questions about him, and I still think they're valid in a lot of ways, like about his defense, and which has been brought up by his own coaching staff in Toronto, not just the media. Those things probably can't be parceled out until the Raptors are a more relevant competitive team, because right now they're just not. They're the 4th worst team in the NBA by record. And with Scotty Barnes hobbling off last night with what looked like a pretty serious injury, they're probably going to sink deeper. But RJ Barrett's done a wonderful job of improving his weaknesses. And I think he's still got some room to grow.
I'll confirm it too. And like, keep in mind, he was supposed to be good. Like, he was supposed to be a really good player, and he comes over in the trade to the Raptors. And now you get a chance to see him even more take another step with Scotty out. But yeah, like, I think of guys like Andrew Wiggins, like RJ Barrett's been really good. So I'll confirm it too.
Yeah. When you take a look at the competition, if we did this same question a year ago, it was a deny because of Jamal Murray. And that's really the one roadblock I would say for RJ Barrett.
But then again, I mean, like let's not put the cart in front of the horse here. Like, Jamal Murray's career resume is far better. I mean, at this, we're talking about this particular moment. At this particular moment,
and we're not just talking about 6 weeks of an NBA season, as you point out. We're talking about like the Olympics showed it as well.
Yeah,
between that and this year, RJ Barrett at the moment is the second best Canadian, and really that trade certainly looks like a win-win for both organizations, as you saw last night with OJ Anunoby and the Knicks prevailing, and the Raptors, doing the dignified tank and losing one of their star players. As Leo Routins points out, it's not a bad thing that you lose Scotty Barnes. I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's bad if you're Darko Rakovic and you're trying to win games.
Well, for sure.
And the other thing is it's bad if you're trying to see what you actually have, because they just haven't seen their lineup in full all season.
I know. There's Emmanuel Quickly on the sidelines cheering them on. And when have we seen that? I don't want to call it a three-headed monster, but at least those three core pieces of the organization together. It's been few and far between. So, anyways, that's confirm or deny. Maybe we'll see confirm or deny tonight with the Leafs and Devils game on TSN 4. We're going to continue on with Mike Johnson to kick off the 5 o'clock hour. Steve Phillips at 6 o'clock and Carter Hutton at 6:30. We'll get into the NHL with him as OverDrive continues on TSN 1050, the TSN app, and also up on TSN 4.